The gentle 30-second technique works not because it forces tinnitus to disappear, but because it communicates directly with the nervous system in a language the body understands. As we grow older, the brain becomes less responsive to aggressive interventions and more receptive to calm, sensory reassurance. This short practice creates a moment of neurological reset by interrupting the loop that keeps the ringing active. Instead of challenging the sound, it redirects the brain's attention, giving it new, non-threatening signals to process. When the hands are softly placed over the ears and the jaw is allowed to relax, pressure and tension around the auditory system begin to release. The jaw, face, and ears share important nerve pathways, especially through the trigeminal nerve. Chronic jaw tension, which many people hold unconsciously, sends constant signals to the brain that increase sensory noise. Relaxing this area immediately reduces competing input, allowing the brain to shift out of a heightened alert state. This alone can soften the intensity of tinnitus within seconds. Slow, controlled breathing during the technique activates the parasympathetic nervous system, often called the body's calming system. With age, this system becomes less active unless intentionally engaged. Deep breathing through the nose, followed by longer, slower exhales, signals safety to the brain. Heart rate slows, muscle tension decreases, and stress hormones drop. When the brain senses this calm state, it no longer feels the need to amplify internal sounds, and the ringing can fade into the background. The light tapping at the base of the skull adds another important layer. This area is close to where auditory signals are processed in the brainstem, and gentle stimulation here provides new sensory input. The brain thrives on novelty, especially when that novelty is harmless and rhythmic. By introducing a different sensation, the auditory cortex is briefly distracted from the repetitive tinnitus signal. This disruption weakens the established loop and gives the nervous system a chance to reset. Circulation also plays a role in why this method can feel effective so quickly. Gentle pressure and movement around the head and neck improve blood flow to the inner ear and brain. Better circulation means clearer communication between the ear and the brain, reducing the need for the brain to compensate with phantom noise. Even small improvements in blood flow can change how sound is perceived, especially in older adults. Perhaps the most important aspect of this technique is what it teaches the brain. When tinnitus softens, even briefly, the brain learns that the sound is not permanent and not dangerous. This reduces fear, and fear is one of the strongest amplifiers of tinnitus. With repeated practice, the brain becomes more confident in its ability to quiet the signal. Over time, the ringing may return less often, feel less intense, or lose its emotional charge. This method does not promise instant cures, but it offers something more sustainable, a way to guide the nervous system back toward balance through gentle, intentional action. Tinnitus after the age of 60 is often misunderstood as a simple problem of the ears, but in reality, it is much more deeply connected to the nervous system and the way the brain responds to change. As the body ages, the brain becomes more alert and protective, constantly scanning for missing or unclear signals. When hearing input becomes slightly weaker due to natural changes in the inner ear, the brain does not accept silence easily. Instead, it tries to compensate by increasing internal signal activity, creating the sensation of ringing, buzzing, or humming. This response is not a sign of damage or failure, but a sign of a highly adaptive brain doing what it believes is necessary to keep awareness intact. Over time, this heightened sensitivity can turn tinnitus into a persistent experience, especially when fear or frustration is involved. The brain learns through repetition, and when the sound is met with anxiety, the brain marks it as important. Importance leads to amplification. This is why tinnitus often feels louder during quiet moments or when stress levels rise. The nervous system stays on alert, and the brain continues to replay the signal, reinforcing the loop. Understanding this process is essential because it shifts the focus away from fighting the sound and toward calming the system that is generating it. With aging, the nervous system also becomes more reactive to physical tension, particularly in the jaw, neck, and shoulders. These areas share neural pathways with the auditory system, and constant tension sends extrasensory input to the brain. The brain does not separate these signals cleanly, so tension-related input can blend with auditory processing, making tinnitus more noticeable. This explains why relaxation techniques and gentle movements can have an immediate effect on the perception of sound. When tension eases, the nervous system settles, and the brain reduces unnecessary amplification. Another important factor is circulation. The inner ear relies on a steady flow of blood and oxygen, and even small changes in circulation can affect how signals are transmitted to the brain. As we age, blood vessels may become less flexible, making circulation slightly less efficient. The brain senses this reduced clarity and compensates by increasing signal gain. Once again, this is not harm, but adaptation. Improving circulation through calm breathing, light movement, and relaxation sends a message of safety to the brain, encouraging it to lower its internal volume. The most powerful shift occurs when tinnitus is no longer seen as an enemy, but as information. When the brain feels reassured rather than threatened, it stops treating the sound as urgent. Calm attention weakens the loop, while fear strengthens it. Over 60, the body responds best to gentleness, patience, and consistency. By calming the nervous system instead of resisting the sound, the brain gradually learns that silence is not dangerous, and in that learning, tinnitus begins to lose its hold. A supportive daily diet plays a quiet but deeply influential role in how tinnitus is experienced, especially after the age of 60 when the nervous system becomes more sensitive to internal changes. The brain and inner ear rely on a steady supply of nutrients and stable blood chemistry to communicate clearly. When this balance is disturbed by dehydration, inflammation, or sudden spikes in blood sugar, nerve signals become more erratic and tinnitus can feel sharper or louder. This does not mean food causes tinnitus, but it can strongly influence how intense and persistent it feels. Hydration is one of the most overlooked factors. The inner ear depends on fluid balance to function properly, and even mild dehydration can affect pressure and signal transmission. As we age, the body's thirst signals weaken, making it easy to drink less than needed. When hydration is low, circulation slows and sensory systems become more irritable. Simply maintaining regular water intake throughout the day helps the nervous system stay calm and reduces unnecessary signal amplification. Anti-inflammatory foods support the delicate structures involved in hearing. Chronic low-grade inflammation becomes more common with age and can irritate nerves, including those linked to sound processing. Foods such as vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, and natural proteins provide antioxidants and essential nutrients that protect nerve tissue and improve blood flow. This nourishment allows the brain to receive clearer information from the ears, reducing the need to create phantom sounds to fill in gaps. Blood sugar stability is another key element. Sudden rises and falls in blood glucose can overstimulate the nervous system, making tinnitus more noticeable. Diets high in refined sugar or irregular eating patterns can create these fluctuations. Balanced meals with fiber, protein, and healthy fats slow digestion and keep energy levels steady. When the brain senses stability, it stays calm, and calm reduces sensory overreaction. Excessive salt and stimulants can also influence tinnitus perception. Too much salt may affect fluid balance in the inner ear, while stimulants like caffeine can heighten nerve sensitivity in some individuals. This does not mean complete avoidance is necessary, but moderation becomes more important with age. Listening to the body's response rather than following strict rules allows for a more sustainable approach to diet. Traditional dietary wisdom often emphasizes warmth, simplicity, and regularity, especially for older adults. Warm meals support digestion and circulation, while regular eating times give the nervous system a sense of predictability. This predictability translates into reduced stress on the brain. When the brain is not constantly adjusting to internal swings, it has less reason to amplify sensory input. Over time, a supportive diet does more than nourish the body, it reassures the nervous system. Each balanced meal sends a signal of safety and stability. In that environment, the brain becomes less reactive and tinnitus gradually loses intensity. Food does not silence the sound directly, but it creates the conditions in which quiet can naturally return. Light daily movement and supportive lifestyle habits have a powerful influence on tinnitus because they directly affect circulation, muscle tension, and nervous system balance. After the age of 60, the body no longer responds well to intense or exhausting exercise, but it responds remarkably well to gentle, consistent movement. Activities such as walking, stretching, slow yoga, or Tai Chi improve blood flow to the brain and inner ear while calming the nervous system. Better circulation allows sensory signals to travel more clearly, reducing the brain's tendency to compensate with phantom noise. One of the most important benefits of light exercise is the release of muscle tension, especially in the neck, shoulders, and jaw. These areas are closely connected to the auditory system through shared nerve pathways. Prolonged sitting, poor posture, or stress can cause stiffness that sends constant sensory input to the brain. This extra input can blend with auditory signals, making tinnitus more noticeable. Gentle movement loosens these muscles, quieting unnecessary signals and allowing the brain to filter sound more effectively. Posture itself plays a surprisingly large role. A forward head position, common in daily life, compresses blood vessels and nerves that supply the ears. Over time, this compression reduces signal clarity and increases brain compensation. Simple posture awareness, lifting the chest, relaxing the shoulders, and aligning the head over the spine can immediately improve blood flow. When posture improves, many people notice a subtle reduction in ringing, not because the ears have changed, but because communication within the system has become clearer. Sleep habits are another essential part of lifestyle balance. Poor sleep increases nervous system sensitivity and reduces the brain's ability to filter signals. Tinnitus often feels louder when the body is tired because the brain's inhibitory systems are weakened. Establishing a regular sleep schedule, reducing screen exposure before bed, and practicing calming routines like slow breathing or gentle stretching help the nervous system settle at night. When the brain is well rested, it is less likely to amplify internal noise. Stress management is equally important. Chronic stress keeps the body in a state of alertness, flooding the nervous system with hormones that heighten sensory perception. Over time, this makes tinnitus more persistent. Small daily practices such as spending time in nature, listening to calming sounds, or simply pausing to breathe deeply can lower stress levels. These moments of calm tell the brain that it does not need to stay vigilant, allowing sensory signals to soften. Lifestyle consistency creates predictability, and predictability calms the brain. Regular routines for movement, meals, rest, and relaxation reduce internal uncertainty. When the brain feels secure, it reduces unnecessary amplification of sensory input. Over time, this stability allows tinnitus to fade into the background of awareness.
Gentle habits may seem simple, but their cumulative effect on the nervous system is profound, creating an internal environment where quiet can
A
naturally
positive and
emerge.
compassionate mindset toward aging plays a central role in how tinnitus is experienced, especially after 60, because the brain responds not only to physical signals, but also to emotional meaning. When tinnitus is interpreted as a sign of decline or loss, the brain associates it with threat. Threat activates survival circuits, and survival circuits amplify sensory input. The sound becomes louder not because the ears have changed, but because the brain has decided the signal is important. Changing this internal narrative can dramatically alter how the brain processes the sound. A compassionate mindset begins with acceptance, not resignation, but understanding. Aging is a natural progression, not a failure. The body changes, and with those changes come new sensations. When these sensations are met with curiosity instead of fear, the nervous system relaxes. Curiosity tells the brain that there is no danger. This simple emotional shift lowers the brain's alert level, reducing its need to hold on to the tinnitus signal. Over time, the sound loses its urgency and fades into the background of awareness. Positive thinking is often misunderstood as ignoring discomfort, but in reality, it is about reframing experience. Instead of saying, "This ringing is ruining my life," a positive mindset says, "My body is adapting, and I am learning how to guide it." This reframing removes emotional weight from the sound. Emotional intensity strengthens neural pathways, while neutrality weakens them. When tinnitus no longer triggers frustration or fear, the brain stops reinforcing the loop that keeps it alive. Self-compassion is especially important after 60. Many older adults are hard on themselves, believing they should be stronger or more resilient than they feel. This internal pressure creates stress, and stress feeds tinnitus. Treating oneself with kindness, allowing rest without guilt, and acknowledging the body's efforts reduce internal conflict. When the mind and body are no longer at odds, the nervous system enters a state of cooperation rather than resistance. Mindfulness practices support this mindset by training attention. When attention is gently guided rather than forcefully controlled, the brain learns flexibility. Noticing tinnitus without reacting to it teaches the brain that the sound does not require action. Over time, the brain reallocates attention to more meaningful experiences. This does not happen overnight, but with consistency, the change is noticeable. The sound may still exist, but it no longer dominates awareness. Belief also shapes outcome. When older adults believe improvement is possible, the brain becomes more receptive to change. Hope activates motivation and reduces stress hormones. This creates a physiological environment where neuroplasticity can occur. The brain remains adaptable throughout life, but it responds best when it feels supported and safe. A compassionate mindset transforms tinnitus from an enemy into a signal that can be managed. With patience, kindness, and consistency, fear dissolves and confidence grows. As confidence grows, the nervous system relaxes, and in that relaxation, the sound loses its hold, allowing peace to return gradually and naturally.